Welcome, everyone, to the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. My name is Ben Smith, and I'm one of the co-hosts here on the show. Listeners, hope you're all doing well today. If you want to be a part of the show, you can email us at bensmith@guidancepointrs.com or check us out on our socials. Leave a comment on our YouTube, things like that. Obviously, we have Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can just search Retirement Success in Maine podcast and find us there. Love to introduce my co-host, the Donald Duck to my Goofy, Curtis Wister.
Right.
Curtis, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Ben. I'm doing well. Not gonna lie, I was expecting to be called Goofy there, but it's okay. I'll take the Donald Duck endorsement. I love it. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, we're kind of doing. I think we're in our high 90s in our shows now, so
We
things are
are.
going pretty well, and
We
we've got a
are.
little sense of retirement in lots of different ways. But did you have any kind of fun things you did this last weekend?
Yeah, it's the weather here in Maine is finally coming around here. It's getting warmer. So spending a lot of time outside on the golf course specifically. My wife is also requesting I set up the outdoor furniture at the house, so that was also on the hit list.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just really trying to get out and enjoy the warm weather now that it's here. How about yourself?
Yeah, same. Of course, May. It's we got to hurry up and enjoy spring because it's only here for a minute, so you
Because
gotta take
winter's
advantage.
coming.
Yes, but one of the things that we do, of course, we go to me, my wife, and my son. We go to Disney every 6 months typically,
Yeah.
and as soon as we leave that last vacation, we are planning the actually a year out. So we've already planned our 6 month out Thanksgiving week trip, which we're going Old Key West, Animal Kingdom Lodge, and Riviera split stay, but we're already planning the next April trip. So we're already
All
kind of getting
right.
into that right now. So that's been our weekend plans is where do we want to stay? And we rent points from Disney vacation clubs, all that. But while we're on the note of researching Disney, though, of course, to this podcast and hearing from our guests. So thinking about Disney and retirement plans, my wife Karen and I have really been talking about where do we want to be, right?
Yeah.
I just had a birthday and I'm in my early 40s. And one thing we know about us, right, is that we've enjoyed the magic of being near Disney World for a lot of our lives.
Yeah.
So now we're thinking about keeping that magic going, but now we're asking the question of probably many retirees or those dreaming about retirement ask, where do I want to live in retirement?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a big question. And I think back to, I think episode 2 with Diane Walsh for Eastern Area Agency and Aging. And
Mm.
she was talking about, look, when you start getting in your early 40s, now is this time to prep your house, to do these things to prep for aging, right? And because you got disposable income to do things, time to do it. And that's something where we've been talking about that is where do we want to live? So Karen and I agree, really, the weather in New England is pretty tiring in
Mm.
January through March. We're not winter people, right? We don't
Yeah.
ski, we don't
Yeah.
snowmobile, we don't ice fish. Um, and people point out to me that we probably live in the wrong place. That's we like the other
We're-
9 months,
Yeah.
but yeah. So we're saying, hey, could we avoid extreme snow and cold for a spell? That would be amazing. So we thought about first buying a home for somewhere warm, but we're not people that want to manage the second property or try to monetize a property so we can stay there for 6 to 8 weeks a year.
Sure.
That seems like a lot of work, right? A lot of
Sure.
money to do that. So, and obviously property prices have gone way up, right? So the cost of doing that seems pretty prohibitive. So we're on our most recent Disney trip, right? We're out, we're walking around the parks, and you see all the Disney Vacation Club booths, right? And
Hmm.
and we know they're timeshares of the various Disney resort properties. But of course, being investment professionals like we are, Curtis, right?
Mm.
So we hear timeshare and you hear the negative connotation of it.
Yeah.
And you just
Yeah.
got to Google problem with timeshares and you get a list a mile long of problems. But the more we looked at this, we researched Disney Vacation Club and the model and how Disney's approach it, it just made more sense.
Yeah.
So our question was, so could we use timeshares, specifically Disney Vacation Club ones, to fulfill a retirement dream of living at Disney World during those harsh New England weeks?
Mm.
So on today's episode, we're going to talk about using Disney Vacation Club to live in Florida in the winter months in retirement.
All right. All right. I like it. I know you are probably of all of our shows, you are an expert in this field, I think, Ben. But of course, we like to have guests on our show as well. So we're bringing in a really, really sophisticated expert here. So our next guest began his Disney career in 1999 in Chicago as the marketing manager with Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. Fast forward to 2007, he joined Disney Vacation Club, or DVC, as part of the pioneering team at Doorway to Dreams, DVC's preview center located outside of Chicago. There, he was a top performer each year and the lead presenter for signature live events. So we're going to jump ahead now. 2014, he joined the DVC Cruise team, where he continued a strong performance. As a DVC Cruise team member, he was chosen to present on multiple DVC member cruises, as well as provide coaching and training to new DVC cast members. So over the years, our guest has received multiple awards for his performance, including the prestigious Leadership Circle and multiple Partners in Excellence nominations. Some of his career highlights include selling over 22 million in Disney Vacation Club Direct. He sold over 42 million in DVC Resale. He's a 6-time DVC Leadership Circle Award winner, DVC member cruise and special events sales presenter. He's been a licensed real estate agent since 2014, and he's also a member of St. Luke's Church. Our guest today currently serves as Senior Sales and Associate and brand ambassador for DVC Resale Market, a World of DVC company. DVC Resale Market's team includes 21 former DVC cast members and has sold over $1.3 billion, that's with a B, billion, dollars of Disney Vacation Club, and has over 200 years of combined direct DVC experience. Our guest today and his wife, Anne, are proud parents of Owen and Connor and live in downtown Windermere, Florida. DVC members since 1999. His favorite Disney memory was having his high school sweetheart, Annie, say, "I do," back in 1996 at their wedding at Disney's Wedding Pavilion. So with that, please join me in welcoming Derek DeBoer to the Retirement Success in Maine podcast. Derek, thank you so much for coming on our show today.
I am beyond thrilled to be here, and I've realized that I'm going to basically just play a recording of that intro anytime I meet anybody in the future. I'm just going to set them down and say, "Who are you?" I'm going to say, "Here, listen to this."
I'll send you the clip as soon as we're done. Just let me know. I'll send it over.
Curtis is just transcripts.
Way too kind. Thank you guys so much for having me on. There's nothing more than I love to do is, of course, talk about probably the best product in the whole entire world. So you guys are going to be a perfect fit for today. So I am very much looking forward to it. So thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Our pleasure. Thanks for coming on, Derek. And I want to make a quick plug too, because World DVC and DVC Resale Market, you guys have a great social media presence, YouTube. For those that are researching all these topics we're going to talk about today, go to World DVC and DVC Resale Market. Go to DVC Fan. Check out those socials, because it has just educated my wife and I so much in terms of all these things and all the questions you guys have done a great job answering. So I want to put that out there first, because I think that's really important if you are considering anything we talk about today. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, look, we're kind of not here to sell DVC ourselves, right? This is not a solicitation to get people into Disney Vacation Club. This is just kind of going through that idea of kind of using this in retirement. So want to kind of put that out there. But Derek, obviously we want to get to know you a little bit here. And introduce you to our listeners and our audience. So let's start with a bit of your background. Obviously, we know that you were in Chicago originally as a marketing manager at Walt Disney World, but talk about your original location, where you're from, and how did that your upbringing lead you to a career of sales?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And sometimes when I think about it and I kind of share my story, I'm like, God, that's insane how I went from here to here to here. It's funny how my career with Disney started was back in Chicago. So I grew up right outside Northwest Indiana. And I went to school in downtown Chicago at Columbia University. Always been a Disney fan, but it wasn't until I went with my mom and dad, of course. And at this time, it was my girlfriend / fiance at the time. They brought us down there. And we all stayed at Dixie Landings. Now it's called Port Orleans. And we just, because it was kind of our first trip there being a grown up, right? You know, you go to Disney when you're a kid and it's like, okay, it's about ride. We had the best time just kind of exploring and just being there as like a couple. And we were like, God, we really love this. Cut to, we had our wedding planned back in Northwest Indiana back in 1995. And we kept thinking, we're like, God, I don't know if I want to get married. Oh, there's so many people. I don't even know these people that are coming to the wedding, like 200 plus people. We found an ad in one of her bridal magazines that said, Disney World is opening up a wedding pavilion where you could get married at Walt Disney World. So we gave that 1-800 phone number a call. We got all the details. And that's where we wound up doing our wedding for about 20 people or so. So we just had a very, very small group. One of the first 100 people to get married at Disney's wedding pavilion. And this was, and I got to share this story because it's financially, it's financially hysterical just of how little my wedding cost. It was ridiculous. So this was our wedding. Cause again, they were brand new. Again, they didn't do a lot of weddings, so they weren't really sure what to charge. We got our whole entire wedding. We had flowers. We had a little champagne and cake reception on one of the balconies right there at the Grand Floridian. So their wedding pavilion is located kind of right between the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian. We had, of course, our minister. We had our 4 nights at the Wilderness Lodge, and back then they had honeymoon suites, and it included all of our park tickets. The whole entire thing was $2,500 for the whole entire
Holy moly. Wow.
So when I look back on that, when I kind of tell people and I go, I think they might charge you $2,500 just to look at the wedding pavilion these days.
Sure.
It is astronomically different, but it was one of those things where we knew that we were going to come back to Disney, and we knew that we were always going to come back. We knew that we were going to have kids. And then when you have kids, you sign that contract that you've got to take so many Disney trips in your whole entire life.
That's it. It's what happens.
It's what happens. And it was on one of those trips. I think maybe it wasn't our honeymoon. Maybe it was the one after that where we were there. And we, of course, just like you mentioned, you kind of see the people in the parks talking about Disney Vacation Club. You see the little cards that are in your hotel room. Hey, come and explore the best kept Disney secret. And you're like, what is this? And it wasn't until, again, another financial story, the hotel that we were staying at the time was probably maybe $60, $70 a night. So we did, just like you guys do, is like, hey, I got to have the next one in the pipeline. So I don't go through that Disney depression, you know, halfway through your trip because it's halfway over and you don't have the next one booked. And we called up Disney saying, okay, well, how much is this hotel next year? And it was about 35% more, right? Yeah. Plus 12.5% tax. And we were like, my God, it's so much more money. And we know we're going to keep coming back. So we said, you know what? Let's sign up for that little tour. Let's see what Disney Vacation Club is. And then we took the tour and they laid it out. They picked us up in a little van and took us over. At the time, it was Old Key West. They explained how the club worked. They showed us the model rooms, which, of course, once you see the model rooms and you think of the hotel room that you're staying in and you see like a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, and it's like, oh, my God, it just made so much sense to us. And we didn't even have a house. You know, we had like a duplex, but we were like, listen, we got to join this club because we know we're going to come back. And I think at the time that we bought, we paid about $12,000 for 170 points, which I'm trying to think what comes out. I don't have my calculator in front of me, what it was kind of per point. But at the time, that 12 grand seemed like a lot of money.
Oh,
but
sure.
We kept thinking to ourselves going, God, you know what? We're going to come back. You know, we know we're going to come back. We know it's going to, as our vacation guide explained, how many trips do y'all have to take before you spend, say, the 12 grand? And for us, it was like, probably like 5. And he's like, so join the club. Yeah. Because then, Derek, Annie, what happens then? You broke even, say, on year 5. And instead of staying in hotel rooms, you're staying in deluxe Disney resorts. But then you're going to get these vacation points that you bought. And for the next 30, 40 years, these points are going to keep coming. And you vacation on just the annual dues, which is literally comes out to be Like you're staying in the deluxe resorts for what people pay to stay at like a value resort, if that's any comparison. So people that stay at the All-Star, people that, which funny story, by the way, the All-Star, when it opened, used to be about $35 a night.
Yeah.
Now to even stay at the All-Star or Pop Century, you're close to probably $300 a night, that $250, $300 plus 12.5% tax. So it's the hotel rooms keep going up every single year. And that's why, thousands and thousands of people join Disney Vacation Club, because it really is. And I love that phrase, kind of a hedge against inflation, because you're not worried how much the hotel rooms have gone up each year, because you say, okay, where are we going? We got 200 points, say every single year. Let's see. Okay, let's stay 5 nights or 7 nights in this place. Or we say, oh, we don't have enough to stay as long, so we can borrow for free, points from the following year. It's such a no-brainer for folks, that for 2 reasons. I mean, flat out, you're gonna save money when you join. For 20 years, I've talked to folks literally from all over the world, because when I was on the Disney cruise ships, I did probably 100 plus cruises all over the world talking to folks, and some of them, probably your audience, would come in and sit with spreadsheets, right? And they have the spreadsheets, and they have things, broken this all out, and they would all wind up joining just because it just makes sense. So that's probably the biggest thing, is you're going to save money. But I like to tell people that the best thing is you're going to vacation better, flat out. Staying in a studio at a deluxe resort or a 1-bedroom with a full kitchen, and you're saving money, but you're going to vacation better. You're staying in a room that, if you have kids, a 1-bedroom, once you do a Disney Vacation Club 1-bedroom, your life is never, ever the same again. Because when you have kids, you have what we like to call, it's truly like the $1 trillion door. So it's a door that you can throw the kids into the bedroom, shut the door, you guys go sit and relax in the living room, let them pass out. So you've got balconies and patios, and you save money and you vacation better. So every family's different. That's what I stress. And I know we're going to talk about that today too, is
exactly.
Some families might buy so many points that they want to almost basically live at Disney for a month or 2 months. But there's a ton of families that say, hey, you know what? We go every other year, or maybe we go, for 3 or 4 nights. Disney Vacation Club can fit, because it truly is customized to each and every family out there.
Yeah, I love that. And Derek, I want to, so at this point, you've bought into Disney Vacation Club. Are you, at this point in your life, are you working for Disney at this point? What drove you ultimately to work at Disney, and then ultimately Disney Vacation Club? Can we hear kind of that side, the work side?
Yep. Of course. Yeah, it's kind of funny, because I wound up finding, in the middle of all my love for Disney, I wound up finding that Disney had a marketing and sales office in Chicago, Illinois, like right downtown. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I could literally take the train and I could work in downtown Chicago, and I could work for Disney and be a full-fledged Disney cast member. So I found some people that work there. You do the basic, this is my dream job. So you pleasantly stalk them until you get an interview. And I was able to get it. And so I was the Disney marketing manager. So I did that for about 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I can't even remember how long, but it's where I did all and involved in the marketing for Walt Disney World. So that anything you saw in Chicago that had like radio stations broadcasting from Walt Disney World, or, ABC TV in Chicago giving away a Disney cruise, or if it's a, media partner in Indianapolis, or maybe Milwaukee, or maybe Louisville. So we were kind of involved in getting the message out about the magic of Disney. But I got to do it in Chicago. And then it wasn't until about 2006 that a friend of mine in Florida, because I was already a member, because we joined back in 1999.
Right.
Said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but Disney Vacation Club, and we know you're a member, and you work with media partners all the time on promotions and blah, blah, blah. They're going to open up the first ever Disney Vacation Club preview center right outside Chicago, in the largest mall in the Midwest, outside of course, Mall of America.
Sure.
But it's in Woodfield Mall, and it's in a town called Schaumburg. So it's about maybe 45 minutes from Disney. But they chose Chicago because they had truly the highest contingent of Disney Vacation Club members in the whole entire Midwest. Like truly, it's like that Chicago area
Hmm.
and then the New York area.
Mhm.
And so they came up with this plan, which again was brilliant. And it opened up in 2007. And it was called Disney's Doorway to Dreams. And it was a place where you could learn about what Disney Vacation Club was without having to, like you guys mentioned, take time from your vacation. So
Yeah,
you
exactly.
could literally be in the mall, going to buy a pair of shoes at Nordstrom's, you happen to walk by, see the Disney folks there and say, God, you know what? We're thinking of planning a trip. So this makes sense. So let me figure out what this is and let me see how much it costs. And and I could see the model rooms. So we had the actual model room. So you could walk through an Animal Kingdom and see a studio. You could see a 1-bedroom. You could see a 2-bedroom. And we had the beautiful fake backdrop of a savanna that was there. So it kind of made you feel like it was Disney. And then you could take the numbers and you could kind of crunch them. So I was blessed enough to be able to get that job and be a Disney Vacation Club guide. And we did that for about 5 years, just helping thousands of families throughout the whole entire Midwest. And I got to tell you, those families still keep in touch with me. We had such a tight relationship with them because we were literally the place where they would come just to hang out in the store because they needed their Disney fix. Right. Because they couldn't get Florida. So if anything,
they wanted to geek out. Yeah.
I'm just going to sit on this fake balcony and look at the fake zebras and giraffes, but it feels like I'm at Disney. So we have such a great relationship with so many folks that joined with us at Disney's Doorway to Dreams. And then I was blessed enough because I got offered the chance to kind of do a lot of presentations, like, in front of groups as, from 10 to 500 to 1,000, to where you kind of talk about Disney Vacation Club, what it is, how it works, but you get to learn about it in a group environment. So a lot of people maybe are intimidated by that, like one-on-one experience, like, I'm sure they're going to lock me in a room with this guy for like 8 hours and not let me out. So having the ability to do these group presentations was something I fell in love with in Chicago big time. And I knew that they had a team on the cruise ships that did it as well. So I was blessed enough to finally, be able to join that team as well, which did involve me leaving the Midwest and packing up the family and moving down here to Florida, which we did about 10, 11 years ago. And like you guys talked about, man, I could never go back. I can't go back.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get used to it here because it's kind of weird because I'm like 15 minutes from Disney. So I'm kind of far enough away. So it does have kind of a weird, it takes a while, like maybe a year. But once you get in, you're like, I can't even fathom the thought of going back to Chicago. So we did that on the cruise ship. Like I said, I probably did like 100+ cruises. So I would, go on a 3-night cruise and come home for 2 nights, and then go on a 7-night cruise and then come home for a week, and then go to Alaska for 2 weeks. And then after doing that for, quite some time, my kids were little at the time, but they were getting older. So it was kind of one of those things where it was like, I got to see my kids grow up. You don't get a second shot at like, hey, could you do me a favor and be 5 again? Because that would be awesome if you could. You can't. So a good friend of mine, Nick, started the DVC resale market back in 2014. And we had worked together. And I was kind of like, hey, you know what? If you ever need somebody, nobody loves this product more than me. So I'm more than happy to join the team. And again, so thrilled to have been here for over the last 5 years and being able to help people with the product that I truly love, this product like more than anything else. So when I talk about it, I ain't trying to convince you to buy it. I'm just telling you my personal stories about it.
Sure.
And I got to do it from home. So I got to be able to see my kids grow up, who are now, my youngest just finished his freshman year at Florida State University. And then my youngest finished his freshman year over here at Olympia High School. Today was the last day of school. So it's been perfect. So it's just been kind of the perfect flow of, being able to, again, still be associated with a fantastic product, but it's almost better than it was before because you're not kind of part of Disney corporate, right? So it's kind of like you get to really be honest. And I'm one of those guys that will tell you, if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you, versus like, hey, if you're talking about this, we really need you to phrase it like this or
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what we get to do here. So we get to help people. And like you guys said, research is the most important thing that you can do when it comes to Disney Vacation Club. This was not like when I bought, to where I don't even think DVC had a website. Now the first thing that people do when they hear about it is they Google it. And the first name that pops up is the DVC resale market, because we have about 65% of the whole worldwide market. And then they go, oh, what's that? Well, that looks a lot cheaper than what the person in Florida told me, or the person on the cruise ship told me. So I'm going to take some time and look into this. So that's exactly what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, Derek, we'll get into all that, I know, momentarily. I do want to ask one little softball question. I know you're warmed up, but we'll give you another softball to warm you up a little bit more. Obviously, people going to Disney World, what are 3 not well-known things that you think everyone who visits Disney World should experience?
So great question, because a lot of people think that Disney's all about the rides. And I hear from people all the time that maybe go for their first time and they're waiting in 2-hour lines all day, all night, from morning until night. And then they come home and go, I don't get it. Why do people come back here? It was awful. Like, all they did was just wait in lines with screaming kids. The best moments that you're going to have are going not involve rides. I always say, make sure that you have, no matter where you're staying, obviously a Disney resort's better, but just have a day or two to just enjoy the pools, just enjoy the resorts. Because especially if you have little kids and you ask them post-trip, and we hear it all the time. I asked my kid what his favorite part of the trip was, and he said swimming in the pool.
Yeah. Oh,
Exactly. Yes.
It wasn't about, waiting in line for 2 hours for a 1-minute ride. So take that family time, and just enjoy the pool, enjoy the resorts. I love to do, which is one of the things I discovered many, many years ago, is you can rent a boat. And I know it may sound like, go, what? I didn't know you could do that. You could rent a pontoon boat, say from the Grand Floridian. It's just a pontoon boat. Take it out for like an hour. It's not that much money, but you and your family can load up in a pontoon boat and float around Seven Seas Lagoon. You could literally float and park your boat right in front of Cinderella Castle. And then you float it by the cabins and you go over by the Contemporary, and then you're out over there on Bay Lake. It just gives you a totally different perspective on, being there. So I love renting a boat. And finally, I'm a big believer in the fact, because that's what I love most about Disney, is all the resorts are different. Take some time to just go resort hopping. So have breakfast maybe at the Polynesian, but then get on the monorail and go over and explore the Grand Floridian, and then take the monorail and go explore the Contemporary, right? Or if you're at Epcot, walk over via the International Gateway, which is right between France and the UK, right where the Skyliner is. And if you've never seen 2 resorts, it's the Boardwalk and Disney's Beach Club and Yacht Club. They're right there. And I can't tell you how many people had no idea that whole area even existed. So I think, being able to discover stuff like that is just what makes Disney so magical. There's still stuff that I haven't done. Like, there's still stuff that I haven't done. And I'm okay with that, because there always are, the must do's. Like, I can't go to Epcot without riding Spaceship Earth. Like, I feel like it's just a law. Like, I have to go on Spaceship Earth no matter what. But we've had so many great times, not even riding one ride. Like, just being able to say, hey, you know what? Let's just go to Epcot today, and let's just stroll around the countries and spend some time in the stores and just kind of try the different food and the drinks and all that stuff. So for me, I think it's always, don't think it's all about the rides,
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's still the Disney bubble, as I call it, which there's no other place like it. As cool as Universal is, and again, it's right down the street. It's super cool. You don't get that same blissful feeling when you're at Universal that you do at Disney. So,
Derek, and I'll kind of just jump in on that point, because it just feels like the detail. It's everything is the detail. Is you walk into each resort and they have their own signature smell.
Oh, yeah.
One of our first trips with my son that we took, we stayed at Art of Animation because Cars was his favorite movie.
Of course.
So we had to stay in the Cars
Of course.
part of Art of Animation. But then you go to the pool and
Yep.
you go underwater in the Little Mermaid pool. And what movie do you hear piped in as sound in the Little Mermaid pool is the Little Mermaid movie.
Yeah.
As you go underwater, you're like, who's experiencing that, right? Just they go underwater for like, 10 seconds at a time,
Yep.
but the little things are just, and it's pervasive through the whole culture, right? It's just the extra experiences are the thing that just kind of puts it over the top. Is you just keep looking for it. To your point about every little thing, if you just take a moment, enjoy those experiences, it's just really cool to see. So that's one of the things that we just love about it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I see it every time I go to the Magic Kingdom. And again, I'm blessed, yes, because I get to live here and I could go, almost whenever I want. But it's still just walking down Main Street, you get that feeling when you first come out underneath the tunnel and you see the castle for the very first time, is you get to just stop and look at the details. Look at all the names. Start Googling the names that are on the windows, up and down Main Street. It's just so many people because they're like, this is my trip to Disney. So we are just going to put the horse blinders on and we are going to go literally 24 hours a day. We're going to barrel right down Main Street. I ain't looking at anything because I need to hit Snow White or, the Seven Dwarves in the Mine ride. And then I got to hit the Tron ride. And then I'm spending the whole time like this because I got Genie Plus. So
Right.
I'm doing the whole thing. I'm
Got
not
to
even
put the light lane. Yep.
Oh, it makes me crazy. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Derek, I know we obviously want to get into this concept of using Disney Vacation Club to snowbird from, in our case, Maine. I know in your case it was Chicago area, but really doing that snowbird from Maine to Florida by using Disney Vacation Club. So on our show, we always like to start with the basics, right? And I know we talked about timeshares kind of quickly in the intro and generally how they got such a bad rep. But what I want to ask you, Derek, is what did Disney get right, or what did Disney learn from this timeshare perception, and how did it shape how Disney approached Disney Vacation Club?
Yeah, it's such a perfect question because again, once you say the word timeshare, people want to get the Brillo pad and start scrubbing themselves in the shower and just be like, oh, I have a friend who has it or my grandma has it and she never uses it and I hate it so much. There's a true story that when Disney Vacation Club started in 1991, Michael Eisner was presented the idea and he was like, he obviously liked it, but he said, listen, I can't stress this enough. If I get one whiff of high pressure sales tactics, if I get one negative report of you guys hounding people in the parks, he goes, I will shut it down. Yeah. And that's why it's always had a different connotation. And especially in those early days, because I still have a lot of friends who are vacation guides, from 1991. And they really had the belief in they have a fantastic product that, for those folks that may not be familiar with just kind of how it works, is it's not, that traditional timeshare where I bought a week and I bought a room and I have to go to that room. I have to go that exact same week to the same resort. But if I want to swap it out, then it's kind of a nightmare because someone has to want what I have. And what if no one wants it? Then I'm stuck at the same place. Disney said, listen, we're just going to sell you points. So we're going to sell you a package of points, whether it's 50, whether it's 100, whether it's 200, 500, you're going to buy those points, but you're going to get them every year. So they kind of recycle. I like to tell people Tinkerbell flies in and says, boom, here you go. Here's your 200 points for 2024. Next year, you're getting 200. Next year, you're getting 200. And you can vacation 365 days a year. So there's no blackout dates, so it's not like you're locked in again to 7 nights. So any day is check-in, any day is check-out. It's just your room is going to be more points during Christmas than it is in the middle of September. Sure. A studio room that sleeps 4 is going to be less points than if you did a grand villa that sleeps 12. Sure. But if you're a family that likes to go for a week, then you could go for a week. If you're maybe someone that lives a little closer and says, hey, I want to do like I do, 4 to 5 little 2-3 night staycations, then throughout the whole entire year, you can do that. So that's the biggest difference with Disney Vacation Club is just the flexibility. You've got 14, really, when you buy on the resale market, 14 amazing resorts that you could use them for. So, you're a member of one, you're a member of all 14 of those Disney Vacation Club resorts. So one trip you say, hey, I want to stay at the Polynesian. Perfect. And the next trip you go, I want to go to the Wilderness Lodge on the next one. Okay. And then the next one, what do you want to do for the next one? So you have really the utmost in flexibility. And that's really the Disney difference is, if the club didn't work and people didn't like it, we wouldn't have, the biggest buyer of points almost every year on the direct side and probably on the resale side is members buying more.
Yeah.
It's members buying more. So if they bought this and said, I've had this for 4 years, I could never get anything. It never works. I hate it.
Dump it. Yep.
They're not going to say, hey, I want to buy 200 more or I want to buy 50 more. It's just the opposite. They're like, man, I wish I joined this club sooner because it's so easy and simple. So yeah.
As someone that reads the social media posts almost on a daily basis with my wife Kara, the official term I think is called add-on-itis. Is that is the official term, right?
That is.
So,
yep, we have copywritten that term, and we actually have T-shirts, as a matter of fact. So remind me to send you guys some. I'll send you.
So, Derek, of course, as financial advisors, we like to do number crunching. That's our thing, right? Is to kind of get the numbers. And as you said, like people go in with their spreadsheets and they kind of get their break evens and what they're spending and all that. And just kind of walk us through, like, just kind of the how it kind of works from as you said, there's points, but there's probably upfront cost to buy points, and then there's ongoing costs. Can you just talk through kind of what that typically looks like over the life of a contract?
Yeah. So great question. So you're basically looking at when people hear about the club, the number one thing is they obviously want to know, well, how much does it cost? So that's where you literally have, I say, the two main costs, which is the first one is your one-time purchase price for your Disney Vacation Club points. So let's say I'm looking on the DVC Resale Market site and I see something for, say, Animal Kingdom, right? And I might look to say, oh, okay, so this is a 200-point contract and they're charging X amount per point, right? So maybe it's $99 a point. Maybe it's $100 a point, whatever it is. You take that multiplied by the number of points, right? So if it's 200 points at $100 per point, that is your one-time purchase price, right? So that's the price that you're going to pay one time. So 20 grand. But I'm going to get those points from Animal Kingdom every year, not just this year, not just next year, every year until the year 2057. Those points are going to keep coming into my account. Then the only other cost that you really have is what's called annual dues. So the annual dues are basically the upkeep for the resort. So every resort has different annual dues. So it's based on, if I purchase Animal Kingdom, I'm going to pay the dues per point for Animal Kingdom. If I buy Vero Beach, I'm going to pay the dues for Vero Beach or whatever resort it is. That's just multiplied by the number of points that you buy. So just to throw it out there. So let's say the dues at Animal Kingdom are, $8 per point. Okay. I got 200 points. Okay. So I'm going to take $8 a point times 200. That's $1,600 a year. Those are your annual dues. Those are maintenance fees. And what I would stress to people, because a lot of people go like, I joined this club in a second, but I don't like paying dues. I don't like the thought of paying dues. But I can say you pay dues now. If you're going to Disney and you're renting a room, right? Yeah. You have your upkeep of the resort. So you have your maintenance, it's your housekeeping, it's your landscaping, it's your security. You're paying that because Disney takes however much of that room night, right? So much of it is profit for Disney. Whatever the other percentage is, whether it's 8% or whatever it is, those are the dues. So you're paying that anyway, and you want your dues because it means they're keeping the resorts up. There's a reason that we keep going back to Disney is because it's the Disney quality. So you want to tell people, you don't want your dues to be like $1 a point because that means the grass ain't mowed, the pool's dirty, no one's watching the security. So those two costs are really it. So what it comes down to, and to put it in, the most simple layman terms, is you say, okay, so if it's a 200 points times $100 a point, that's a $20,000 purchase price. You just have to ask yourself, how many trips do I have to take of renting rooms at Disney before I spend that anyway?
Right.
Then you say, Oh, so once I break even on that, gotcha. Then I just pay the dues. So I mean, there's people that bought this, say 5-7 trips ago. They got their dues this year for Animal Kingdom. They own 200 points. They're paying $1,600 for their rooms. Now, 200 points, you could probably stay at a deluxe Disney resort for 10, 12 nights a year, kind of,
Sure.
depending on the number of nights. So then you take 1,600 divided by even 10 nights a year. It means you're getting $160 to stay at the Polynesian, to stay at the Grand Floridian, to stay at the Contemporary, where those rooms are $700+ a night. So that's where the money comes in, and you go, okay, well, it's kind of a no-brainer, because I would rather, and again, I tell people, because people say all the time, they're like, well, we're not really deluxe people, because Derek, you don't understand. When we go to the parks, we're fine staying at the All-Star, or Pop Century, because we're in the parks from like 6 a.m. until literally 5 a.m. So we just use the place to just go ahead and crash and sleep. So we don't need a fancy room. But the point is, I don't care for less money. Again, there's someone staying for $160 a night at the Polynesian. Why would you not rather stay at the Polynesian? I don't care if you're not even in that room.
That's
Why
right.
would you not? It's not like you're paying more money to stay, to not visit your room. You're spending less money and staying in a better room, which results in you having a better vacation.
And I'd argue you probably have more budget then to do more things if you wanted to, and you could go have a resort day because you save money, and there's lots of ripples to that.
And probably too that the biggest ripple is people kind of take off that, commando hat, and the spreadsheets of we're doing this every single day, because once you're a member, you're coming back. So you literally could be on that trip and say, you know what, we'll maybe go to the Magic Kingdom like once this trip, because remember, next year we're staying at the Poly. So we'll do like a lot of Magic Kingdom stuff next year. So it takes that, God, we got to cram everything in, because you've already got the next trip, and most members have like the next 5 trips already planned.
Right. And Derek, I want to ask the question, because I think this is really relevant, and I think to the point about timeshares and some of the negative connotation about it. But obviously, Disney, you can just go directly to Disney's website and you could buy Disney Vacation Club. But obviously, DVC Resale and your company, right, you've created this secondary market where people's already bought from Disney themselves. And then there's this whole exchange of buyers and sellers, and you can kind of get that. So I think it's fascinating is that there's a whole market that evolved that, hey, people are in there like, hey, I got my use out of it. I'm just not into it anymore for whatever reason, and I want to go do other things. So that there is a viability of resale. So can you just talk about how that evolved? Because I think that's just a fascinating history of how did that get to that point?
I'm always fascinated by it. And again, I give full credit to, of course, my boss and great friend, Nick, who, when he was always a top salesperson at Disney, a big question that every guest that he would meet with would say, well, what if I have to sell it? And at that point, there really wasn't a company like ours, which is all stocked with former Disney people with literally like 1 billion years of experience working directly for Disney. The only other place you had back then was like, I think there's a place online, but they sell Hilton too, and they sell, Holiday Inn timeshare. So maybe they could probably help you with your Disney timeshare. So he literally came up with this idea and said, I want to have a company where people feel comfortable coming if they have to sell, because they're going to be dealing with Disney Vacation Club trained cast members that, again, know both sides of the fence. We don't just, spiel and say, listen, you have to buy the resale. Don't ever buy direct. We have a ton of people that if it makes sense for them to buy direct, we say, great, here's my friend. Call up my friend and they'll be able to help you. He just saw a tremendous hole in the fact of being able to help sellers have a place where they're comfortable with, to where we always like to say, not in a cheesy way, but you get the same Disney service, but without the Disney prices. So that's a really big one for us, just because people have that comfort level of dealing with. And I would say at least once or twice or 3-4 times a week, someone will reach out to me to sell and say, Derek, I don't know if you remember me, but we were on a cruise in Europe back in 2018, and we bought our membership from you, or we bought from you in Chicago at Disney's Doorway to Dreams. So people have a comfort level of dealing with trained Disney people. And that's where, the market really exploded, in being able to not only accommodate sellers, but also being able to say, listen, if you want to be a member of this club, you could buy on the secondary market, and we'll take all the questions. We'll take all the gray areas out. We'll literally tell you what you can and can't do on our website. So there's no surprises of, oh my God, what did I buy? I know it's cheaper, but why is it cheaper? So I'm not quite sure. So being able to help buyers and sellers is probably one of the most rewarding things for me, because I mean, some of the best stories you have are from sellers, that reach out to us and say, Derek, I'm so glad that this family bought the, old Key West. We bought it back in 1992. My God, our kids have such great memories of it. But you know what? We've just kind of outgrown it. Maybe we haven't used it as much as we are in the past. But will you please pass the message on to the so-and-so family that we hope that they enjoy it as much as we possibly have.
Yeah.
So it's that's just the stuff that gives you goosebumps, because it's just and of course the people that finally buy too as well, that said, hey, you know what? We looked at this for the last 6 years. Every time we go to Disney, we pass by the people in the parks or we sit with them and do it. But financially, we couldn't pull the trigger because it's like so expensive, $215 a point. And I could buy this from you for maybe $100 and some dollars a point. So those families that are finally able to get started, and the fact that we're able to play a role in them becoming a member and taking better vacations. So it's just kind of a win-win.
I love it. I love it. I want to go back to Ben and his goal of retiring for a period of time, right? Whether it's weeks or months at Disney by using DVC contracts. I guess my question for you, Derek, how would you go about buying towards a goal like that over time, right? Are there opportunities to purchase at better times than others? I guess what comes to my head, right, during COVID or maybe the financial crisis back in 07, 09, were people selling their contracts at lower prices during those times?
It's kind of interesting. And one of the busier times that we've ever had here was during COVID. Yeah. Which a lot of people would think, like, why would that be? Like, why would it be such a busy time on the resale market? It's because thousands and thousands of people couldn't go on vacation.
Yeah.
So they use that time at home to say, well, we ain't going to Disney World because everything's shut down. So why don't we use this time to look into what Disney Vacation Club is and see if it's going to make a fit? And that's where they would, find us to be able to purchase and say, hey, we were going to drop $7,000 on a next Disney trip. So why don't we put that money and purchase a Disney Vacation Club membership? So then we're ready to go. It's, when it comes to retirement, it's one of those things where it's always kind of a pipe dream for a lot of people when they join. They always hear because they will look at, and especially, if they see a larger listing, right? Because you can buy as few as, 25 vacation club points, which a lot of people might say, well, what does that get you? I mean, 25 points might get you like one night at the Polynesian or maybe 2 nights at Animal Kingdom. So not a lot. But then we've sold contracts, and you could go to Disney Direct and buy 2,000 vacation club points. So when you look at that, you go, well, how long could I stay? You could stay a long time. I mean, you could literally stay a very, very long time. Do most people start off and buy, 2,000 vacation points?
Sure.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because people will always, get their feet wet and they'll use it. The average resale package is always between kind of 200 and 300 points is on the resale side. For the direct side, it's usually about like 150, 200. So it's a little bit less just because it's obviously much more money to buy direct from Disney. But they'll buy it, they'll use it, they'll get started with it. And they will is when that add-on-itis kicks in, and people will add on points even before they've used their first set of points. So that happens almost every single day. So they might start off with 250. And then they'll use it or start planning and look to say, you know what, I don't want to borrow a lot. So I think let's buy another 100, or let's buy another 200, or let's buy another thing. And they'll continue to buy these smaller contracts, which is an interesting story, because when we would have people, say on the cruise ships, that would sit down and they would tell us how they vacation, and they would need, because you're their counselor. So you'd have to tell them and say, listen, you vacation during Christmas week with 9 of you. So you're going to need a grand villa, and you're going to need, 800, 900, 1,000 points. And we would always have them and suggest to just break it up into smaller contracts, so that way, if they do have to sell down the road, if they have 1,000 points, it's best if they have, 4 250-point contracts. So then if their life changes, they could, I'll drop 250 or I'll drop 500 of them.
It's an interesting point.
Keep this is fully transferable. So this is fully willable, pass it on to the kids. So what people love about it too is there's no, hidden fees with that. So you go, okay, if I've got a ton of points and if I can't make it, can I send my kids? Can my grandkids use this if I'm not there? And the answer is absolutely they can. Anybody could use it. You just make the reservation for them and they check in like normal. They're not treated any differently whatsoever. It's just for the people with larger point packages, what tends to kind of happen and what they like about it, and you kind of touched on it too, is the flexibility of just being able to not be tied down to one place, not having to pay, maintenance fees or, whatever it is, for 8 months of the year when I'm not there, I still have to pay it. Whereas this, okay, if I buy enough points, I could maybe come down in the winter months, but depending on who's coming with me. So I might say, it's the holidays. We're going to have the kids and the grandkids. We're going to do a grand villa at this resort for a week during the holidays. Then holidays are done. Everybody goes back home. So now we're going to switch over and move over to Animal Kingdom. And it's just the two of us. And maybe we're going to stay in a studio Savannah View room for a couple of weeks. Then we'll do the 1-bedroom for 3 weeks at a different resort. Then we're going to go back home, but the older kids are coming with their kids without us. So we're going to have them be able to use the points. We have people that will buy large packages, will sometimes do it under their company name, which is very, very common. And being able to give out points, give out basically vacations as incentives. So that's a big one. So we've had a lot of people will do that and say, listen, instead of giving away these, pre-packaged trips that, whatever it is on an Apple Vacations or a Sandals retreat, we're going to say, hey, if you're the salesman of this quarter, you're going to get, 2 weeks at a Walt Disney World Deluxe 1-bedroom grand villa, and they just make the reservation for them and go ahead and do it. So there's no hidden fees for things like that too, which is super nice. Because a lot of other timeshares will nickel and dime you to death that if you're not using it, then you've got to pay a guest fee. If you're going to bank your points, you've got to pay a fee. If you're going to borrow points, if you're going to use it for somewhere else, you got to pay a different fee. So what is nice with Disney is there's no hidden fees whatsoever.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I want to keep kind of going here, Derek, and Ben and I have heard from you and your team on your YouTube channel. The average ownership duration of a contract is 10 to 12 years. Seems interesting to us, right? Because obviously the contracts are 50 years in duration. Does that speak to the ease of selling a contract? That there's much more turnover, or the maintenance fees maybe were more than they thought, life goals changed, a mix of all the above, something else I missed there. Can you just kind of speak to that?
Of course. Yeah. People will always say when they join the club and sit down with us, or when they join for the first time, it's always, well, just say, I'm never going to sell this. I just want you to know I'm never going to sell it. We're going to ride this thing out till 2060 or 2050, something, whatever it is. And I go, listen, you never know what life's going to bring. That is the biggest thing that I can stress to people is we sold, over 6,000 contracts last year, right? So over $95 million. And probably all of them at one point or another, when they first joined, said, I'm never going to sell it. But for whatever reason, life happens. So the biggest ones are, vacation patterns change. Right. So if people have had it for a while, they literally might be like, you know what, we're kind of done with the Disney stuff. I think our kids are kind of outgrowing it. But Derek, we've loved this. This has been one of the best things that we've ever bought. But we think we're done. Obviously, there's other situations that may come about, like a divorce may happen. Sure. You might have a job loss that can happen too as well. The death of a spouse can also happen too, where they say, we've had this thing for 20 some years. We love it, but I can't go back without him or her. And I totally get that. So whatever your reason is, it's not like we ask you to fill out like an essay form and then we'll approve it if it's a good reason or not. Whatever your reason is, because we've heard everything under the sun. So, but yeah, we are there to help you sell it, and that's the best part. And we had kind of talked about that before we started recording, is that at least you have a place that you can sell it. That if you're not going to Disney and taking Disney vacations, I'll tell you right now, don't buy this.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's a terrible purchase if you're not going to use it and you're not going to take Disney vacations. But if you are, it's a no-brainer. That's why the number one phrase in all of Disney Vacation Club, whether you buy resale or whether you buy direct, is always, I wish I did it sooner. Because I hear it every single day. God, Derek, 5 years ago, we walked by, or we started talking to you, or we looked at a booth and we looked at the club and we said, I don't know, whatever. 5 years later, every year they kept spending the money, and they realized and said, God, I wish I could have, got started with something.
Well, Derek, I want to ask maybe some rapid fire questions, because there may be many questions that might have. And again, just thinking about if I'm going to stay, like, basically it's just a really long vacation is kind of what we're talking about, right? It's like if I'm staying for 6 or 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it's just a long vacation.
Right.
So just things I don't know is, well, before you go and put all this money into something and then go, well, then I go to stay for 30 days. Is there any restriction of staying at any location, whether it be a property or it's a Florida thing where you can't stay in stay this? So is there a restriction on how long you can stay at a property?
30 days. So
30 days.
30 days, and 30 days you can check out and then check back in, but it can't be more than a 30-day consecutive stay. So we've talked to members over the years, and one of them was very involved in the early days of the DVC show, and he had a tremendous amount of points, and he would come down and he would do just that. So he would stay for 30 days at Old Key West, and then he would, of course, check out, and then he'd check back into a different room, but you do have a 30-day limit. So it's not like you can kind of hold that base for 3 months. You do have to kind of stop it after 30 days, and you could check back in. If that room happens to be available, you could stay there. Or if not, you just have to move to a different room or a different resort.
So basically I can go, again, Old Key West. I did that for 30 days. I go into Polynesian for one night, and then I go back to 30 days and I can just keep, that's okay. Okay. That's just good to know. First of all, you go towards these plans and you go, no, you can't do that. Then that just sinks the whole ship. So question number 2, then, what's the risk that the annual dues, the maintenance fees goes out of control, right? So Disney gets hit with back-to-back Class 4 hurricanes, and properties need repairs, and and I think that's in the back of the mind. Right? Are there maintenance fee caps anywhere? Something where there's protection anywhere?
Yeah. Or you hear it. I would hear it all the time. Like, what if I get hit with like a special assessment, or what if this happens or that happens? The best thing about the dues, and it's kind of twofold, is there is a Florida state law that says the dues can't increase more than 20% a year. I can tell you, they ain't coming anywhere near that. The average increase per year over the last, and they've got a 30-year history of this, is anywhere between probably 3 to 5, maybe 6% an increase per year. And the reason that is the largest owner of Disney Vacation Club points is Disney Vacation Club. So they sell 98% of all the inventory that's out there. So at each resort, 98% of all the inventory is for members who have points to be able to book, which leads to a question that we sometimes get is, I don't understand. I went online to go try to book a stay at Animal Kingdom, and it said it was all booked. But I could go to DisneyWorld.com and they have a studio room available. So why do I have a membership? And the reason is Disney keeps 2% of all the inventory so they could rent it out for buku bucks. But that helps with the dues, because if Disney pays dues on 2% of all the Disney Vacation Club resorts, that is a tremendous amount of points that if for some reason, Disney goes, we're going to jack up the dues 19% this year, they got to pay dues on 2% of all the inventory. So financially, it's an insane thing to do. But to touch on the hurricane thing, which is very, very important, is a big chunk of everybody's annual dues is reserves. So they've already taken the money out. So for example, when Disney's Vero Beach Resort, which is about 2 hours from Disney, my favorite Disney Vacation Club resort, I just absolutely love it. We go like 3 times a year. It's terrific. A couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 6, I can't remember when, they got hit with 2 hurricanes within like a 2-month span. Destroyed their whole dock and their pier. Members didn't have to pay any special assessments or any fixes to the roof or any, structural damage that was done because that money was already taken out in reserve. So Disney over the 30 plus years, they've never had a special assessment at all whatsoever. So you can rest easy with that.
Gotcha. Last one there. So exchange options, right? So you made the point about, I don't go to Florida anymore and I want to go somewhere else. So I don't want to go to Florida, but I want to go do other things. Are there exchanges valuable enough? Because I think the whole yeah, you can do it, but you kind of get like pennies on the dollar. I guess that's the question too. Of you talked about the 14 resorts and obviously within Disney World itself, but what are the other things that maybe you might be able to do with those points?
Yeah. So when you purchase on the resale market, again, you do have some restrictions, which basically is you could use your points at the 14 original Disney Vacation Club Resort. So that includes, many of them down there at Walt Disney World, one out there in Disneyland, Hilton Head and Vero Beach, and Hawaii. So they have Aulani. You can also use your points to exchange them through a travel partner that Disney uses called Interval International, which has thousands of different resorts all over the whole entire world. Like you touched on, you can use your points for those. It's probably not the best use of points. You will always find the best use of your Disney points is for using them at a Disney Vacation Club resort. Yeah. One great option that you have with us is because we're the world of DVC. So we have a rental company, the DVC rental store. We have a financing arm called Monera. And of course, we have the DVC resale market. You could swap your Disney Vacation Club points out with our rental partner for just about any vacation that you can possibly think of. So if you want to swap it out for cash and go to wherever you want to go, great. If you want to do just a swap for points to take things like a Disney cruise, which will, again, use verse booking with Disney, you're going to save about 30 to 50% of your points to do a swap program for that exact same cruise with us than if you did it directly through Disney. You could swap out your Disney Vacation Club points for Universal resorts right here in Florida. You could swap them out for Universal tickets. You can swipe them out for Sandals resorts. You could swap them out for vacation homes that are right here, probably 15 minutes away from Walt Disney World. So if you want to do a huge family reunion in an own private house, you could swap out your points for that. So us being able to kind of look at to say, okay, so Disney would always say, well, if you buy on the resale market, they always wanted to give you, FOMO. So they always wanted to give you the fear of missing out. Well, what if I buy on the resale market? Well, they would say, and still do, you can't use your points on a Disney cruise. So you can't do that. And people go, oh, that stinks because I one day wanted to take a cruise. What they don't tell you is how horrible it is to use your points on a Disney cruise. I mean, it's hundreds of points per person. So hundreds of points per person. So at least if you want to do it with us, just because we save 50%. So a cruise would be 500 points total. You could do it with us for 250. So it's the exact same cruise. Is this going to fit every type of vacation need that you possibly have? Like, oh, I want to come down here and use it to go stay in some place in Destin, Florida, or I want to go to Myrtle Beach. I mean, technically, could you through the exchange program? You probably could, but it's just not the best use of points. I mean, buy DVC for DVC,
But I think, Derek, the point is you're not just, to your point about timeshare is, the timeshare at the one resort, one room, 1 week, you are just locked right in, right? So I think that's just helpful to paint the picture of there's a lot of more creative uses that are probably even happening every day, right? And that you can continue to do with that. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's a huge point because I could use myself as an example. I bought a place called the Boardwalk in 1999 as my home resort. I haven't stayed there since I think 2009, I think was the last time I probably stayed at the Boardwalk, just because we stay at all the other ones. We just really like them all for different reasons. We just asked the kids and said, hey, we went online. We've got some points, and we said, where do you want to go in June for like a little staycation for 2 nights? And we said, you got the Poly or you have the Wilderness Lodge? And they're like, Wilderness Lodge. So we just didn't booked it. So they're all great, but for different reasons. So yeah, people will buy, whatever their home resort is, which is the one resort that you purchase, right, to where your deed is. You're not contractually that you ever have to stay there. So if you never wanted to stay there, you don't have to. It makes no difference at all. None.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to keep going here, actually. And I have another question. It's kind of a multi-part question that I want to ask here. So again, thinking about those people who want to stay somewhere for weeks or a month at a time. I know you just explained that 30-day rule. Of course, I'm thinking in my head, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need to pack more things than I would for a typical vacation. So, right, obviously clothing at the basic level, then you have things like food, you have personal property, travel, really anything that you use in your daily lives. What's the solution for that? Is there storage units? Like, how do current DVC owners kind of accomplish these long stays?
Yeah. So obviously, if you stay in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a grand villa, you have a washer and dryer in your room. So it's literally, you have a full kitchen in your room. You've got a full, oven. You've got a full stove. You've got all that stuff in your room. If you're staying in a studio, which is a smaller room, you do have access to free laundry. So you can do that. We have a lot of folks that will rent, and there's companies that rent them. I cannot remember the name off the top of my head, but they're bins. So it's like a company. I can't remember what it is. It's going to make me crazy. Purple Box or something. Oh, it's going to make me nuts. But yeah, there's to where, and they might not even be the type of family that come down for long periods of time. It might be there once, for 1 week or maybe 2 weeks, but you could rent basically storage bins. So if I need this stuff, they drive it over to the hotel. They drop off your bin with all your stuff in it. You use it during that whole entire trip, put it back in the bin, and then they take it back and then they go ahead and store it for you.
So I appreciate that. So quick follow-up question on the food piece. I heard you say full kitchens, right? Assuming that means no issues with me bringing food, like groceries and things like that onto property, anything like that. Okay. Just checking a box, just making sure. It's a great full kitchen, but I can't bring groceries in. Just wanted to make sure we were good to go.
You don't just have to purchase the overpriced Disney groceries. You can have you can have Publix delivered. You can have
I love it.
Do they sell the bare minimums at every Disney Vacation Club resort? Yeah. So they sell eggs and frozen pizzas and stuff, but go to Publix. So that's I mean, we live again like 20 minutes away. So when we stay, I'm not spending $11 on a Bud Light. So I will pack up my cooler like the Beverly Hillbillies, and I will show up and be happy as can be.
I love it.
I'm not spending all that money. So
I love it.
Totally welcome. Bring in any and everything you need.
Perfect.
Well, Derek, I know obviously we retirement success in Maine it's a show about aging, right? And part of aging is that we eventually reach an end date. And I think you talked about this a little bit. So process of transferability and inheritance of our contracts. So I want to ask the part 2 of that. Is that also are DVC contracts a good thing to leave someone? Because the question embedded in that is, are we putting a loved one on a hook for annual dues that they didn't sign up for, right? It's like, hey, my son, Caden, great, here's a great thing for you. But, for the next 25 years, you're going to be on the hook for some annual dues. So that's just I think a natural question of, hey, our own end dates and whether it would be better to not leave it to them and just give them money if they wanted to go buy it themselves, if they wanted to do that. Or, geez, we already kind of have the value out of this already. We've already kind of paid up front with all this money and only have annual dues going forward. So I guess that's kind of the pro and con. Is how would you weigh that out?
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of people that will do the first scenario, which is, hey, my kids have grown up with it. They love it. But I talk to them about it and they don't necessarily, want to take on the annual dues. So we know that it's all paid off. I tried to explain the value to them of how much it's going to cost to rent a vacation, but kids and blah, blah, blah. So that's where they go ahead and sell it. We've had other people will go ahead and transfer it on to the kids, and maybe the kids keep it for 5-6 years. And again, they turn around and they might sell it. So they might still go ahead and use it, but yeah, you can fully go ahead. You could pass it on to the kids. You could have others be able to use it. Now, it's obviously the best to, talk to the kids to figure out, especially if they're the ones that have kind of grown up with it, and just explain to them and say, listen, this is our contract. So we pay, as the rooms that you stay in, we would never stay in them if we didn't buy Disney Vacation Club. But every year, mom and dad pay, $1,600 a year, for us for this. So if something were to happen or something may be happening, whatever that is, are you comfortable with taking this on? So a lot of time the kids go, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I just priced out the last trip that we all took, and it would have been a $9,000 room, but we got it for obviously $1,600. So every family's different, but whether you pass it on and they decide that they don't want it, so you can sell it before you pass it on, if you want to pass it on to them, and then if they decide to go ahead and sell it, it's nothing that can only be resold once. So if you need to buy it, because people ask that and say, can I resell a resale contract? We're like, yes, it happens every single day. Every day. So
Derek, I guess as part of that though, so say, obviously, as you said, willable, right? So I can put up my will and it could go through the probate process and it could be sold and get value for the estate. But I think part two of that, is there anything that says, hey, it's not going anywhere? Like does it resort back to Disney? Is if I say, hey, that doesn't, like, I don't really have any plans for this. Like what happens in that case? If I passed away and I've not really named an heir to it, or like what happens?
Then it's just foreclosed on.
Okay.
So it's just foreclosed on. Yep. And so
just
that's
like any other property.
Like any other piece of property. So people ask me, say, so what if I have it and if I don't pay the dues on it? We're going to foreclose on it. They're going to take it away and they're going to foreclose on it. So
Got it.
Gotcha. So which is essentially the solution. If you said maintenance fees did go out of control and no one could afford it and the prices went down to $1 and nobody then wanted it, and you just said, well, how do I get out of this thing? And that would be the answer, essentially, would be to get foreclosed on, essentially.
Yeah. Or just, give it to us and let us sell it. Just make sure your dues are up to date. So we can't sell anything if it's got, a lien against it, if it's got any of that. We ain't touching it with a 10-foot pole, because we have to look up your deed and everything else. And it happens more often than not. Like, I'm going to turn around and sell this. And you go, okay, great. So we bought it a year ago. Yeah. That's always kind of a red flag, just because something probably happened that made them want to go ahead and turn around and sell it, especially if they bought it direct, say, from Disney, and they took out a loan on it. So it's always like, okay, so we're going to suggest that you sell it for XXX amount. But then after the commission, and fees to Disney, you can use this money to go ahead and pay off your loan. But if it's not enough, you have to cover the balance. You can't sell something that you don't own. So you have to do that. And they go, oh my God, well, that's like $5,000 more dollars. Like, well, you can't use this to go on vacations with it, turn around and sell it and get all your money back.
Yeah. Well, good idea. It's an A for effort, I guess. We'll try. Give them a checkbox in the good try column. Derek, I have one final question for you. We've reached kind of the end of our conversation with you, but I first wanted to say thank you again for coming on and sharing your expertise with us and our audience. This has been such a fun, informative conversation. So thank you. Again, the final question here for you. I'm going to change gears a little. Based on the couple hours I've known you, I think we're going to stay in the same realm with the answer here. But obviously, the name of our show, Retirement Success in Maine. I want to ask you, how are you going to find your personal retirement success?
Oh, such a good question. And I can't believe that it took me so long to bring this up, that my dad lives in Asheville, but he goes up and spends the summer in Whiting, Maine. So all the way up there. I can't. Is it called the Down East or Down? What's it called?
Yeah, Down East. Yeah.
Yep. That's it. So up there by Whiting, we love visiting up there. We went to Acadia a few years ago, and of course, I had to do the Bar Harbor thing. It's fantastic. My kids still talk about that. Their time up in Maine with our hikes that we did all over the place and seeing the lighthouses was like one of the best trips that we've ever taken. And we didn't use one Disney Vacation Club point for it. So,
sounds like we need to start a Maine Vacation Club.
Exactly. Yeah. My retirement plan, which is kind of funny because I remember specifically sitting in like a college class as a freshman, which was many, many moons ago. And I remember the guy saying, if you're going to think about retirement, he goes, you guys are young. He goes, just start now. He goes, if you put away $100 a month, I remember in this day, and you see all these kids in class and they're not paying attention. They're doodling and all this stuff. Meanwhile, those people that did are sitting pretty, So that's why the biggest thing that you have is just time. So I've always tried to just make sure that I have time, not only financially for what my goals are, but it's, be able to spend time with my kids, and never having them want for anything. I'm not the kind of guy that, showers them with, oh, it's time for your first car. And here's a, BMW for your very first car. No, it's always, hey, you know what? You're going to like this used Toyota Camry because it's amazing. And we've always bought Toyotas. So I always viewed, and I think it was how I was raised, was always been like spending time as a family was much more important than any kind of, superficial gifts per se. So it's always, we drove a car forever. We weren't the family that always had the biggest house on the block. We weren't the family that always had the fanciest new cars, but we were the family that every year they go, God, you guys go away on vacation every single year, whether it was road trips or things like that. So my retirement plans are, I'm 51 now. So my retirement plans are, I'd love to keep working, as long as I can, because I'm blessed that I get to do what I do from home, so I don't have to kind of, I've done all the corporate life and the, commutes to and from work. So I would love to be able to just kind of continue to do what I do, because to me, and it's not to be cheesy, but I'm a cheeseball, but there's no other product in the world like this, to where every single day I get an email or a phone call, I swear to God, where someone says, I just want to say thank you, or here's a picture from our family's last vacation. We never would have done this if it wasn't for you. It's not, it's not like, you don't buy a car and, drive it a year later back to the dealer and say, hey, Frank, I just want to say, I love this car, but there's something about Disney Vacation Club that, it just allows you to help so many people that I'd love to be able to keep doing this for, as long as I can. I would love it.
Love that.
Well, and I think that's something where, we've awakened to too, as financial advisors, is, what's the purpose of money, right? And what's the purpose of life? And I think the intersection of two is to say, hey, we have a limited, finite amount of time on this world, and, enjoying the people we love and our families and our friends, and creating memories and having fun together and enjoying it. And Disney represents that. And you just explained the same thing about state of Maine, is we kind of see the same thing of all the generations of family coming back to the state of Maine as well, and doing their camps together and swimming together and campfires and evenings. And we just see that so much. And I think that's just probably what we're exploring today, was just the reverb in reverse of that, right? Is just kind of, hey, here's months where you don't want to be a certain place and you go to that. So, Derek, thank you so much for coming on our show and going through all that. And again, it's just always, it's fun to explore, all these interweaving kind of themes and ideas. We'd love to kind of catch up with you at some point down the road. And thanks so much.
I would love it. And again, thank you guys so much. This has been one of the most fun shows that I've done in a very, very, very long time. So thank you guys very much.
All right,
this was great.
Catch you next time. So episode 97. Again, I appreciate everybody kind of bearing with us on this one. Derek, obviously, DeBoer, really awesome, knows his stuff around Disney's Vacation Club, lives it, breathes it, passionate about Disney, clearly. And it's just something where, my wife and I, Carol, we just kind of grown with Disney over the years, and just kind of said, hey, I think this kind of makes sense, for all the reasons I think Derek lined up. Right? It was with all that. So we're actually working with Derek right now on our own kind of first contract. So Animal Kingdom Lodge is our resort we're choosing into. So again, got to go through a process, and there's a right of first refusal. But again, this is the thought is, hey, how can we kind of research this to maybe as another kind of different way to kind of go about that snowbirding process. So
for sure.
Hope you all learn, even if it was like, hey, it's not really, you're not Disney people. But I think the point is being a little flexible, or looking at things in a different way, I think is another way to just learn. Right. And and not just being like, oh, I thought you had to go buy some house or duplex somewhere, and I had to go find the place to go do it. And
Yep.
I think you get so laser focused into one path, it can lock into something that maybe there's better options available if you just widen the lens a little bit. So that was the
Yeah.
goal of exploration today. So as I said, episode 97.
Yep.
We're going to have a lot of links out there to Derek DeBoer's company, and his social and
Socials,
contact
yeah.
information
Yep.
will all be there. So if you go to blog.guidancepointllc.com/97
Yep.
for episode 97, you can go see all that. Again, we would love to hear from you. So if you see the release on our Facebook page, LinkedIn page, things like that, love to hear your comments on it. How did you like the episode? What did you learn from it? We'd love to interact with you there. So we appreciate you tuning into our show, and we'll catch you next time.